She shattered centuries of royal silence with just a few words. In interviews that shook Buckingham Palace to its core, Princess Diana exposed the cracks behind the crown. From calling out Camilla in 1995 to questioning Charles's fitness to be king. Her bold truths weren't just shocking, they were historic. As the monarchy scrambled to recover, Diana became the people's voice, not their puppet. These are the 10 most controversial things she ever said, and why they still matter today. There were 3 of us in this marriage. The night of November 20th, 1995, changed everything for the British monarchy. In her BBC Panorama interview, Diana looked straight into the camera and delivered a line that would haunt King Charles III for decades. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. Her reference to Camilla Parker Bowles, Charles's longtime mistress, was deliberate, pointed, and raw. For the first time in royal history, a senior member of the family exposed the internal betrayal that had, until then, been whispered about but never confirmed. The impact was immediate. Millions of viewers around the world watched as Diana tore down the illusion of a happy royal marriage. The fallout from Diana's words was seismic. Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, and even Prime Minister John Major's office were reportedly in crisis talks the next morning. Tabloid headlines screamed betrayal, and Camilla's reputation plummeted to historic lows. Diana had framed herself not as a jilted wife, but as a woman forced into survival mode within a cold and unfaithful institution. This was not just a personal revelation, it was a public condemnation of the monarchy's moral standing. The BBC's viewer count exceeded 23 million, and public support for the monarchy dipped by 12% within weeks. Behind closed doors, Charles was said to be furious. Royal aides in 1996 admitted that Diana's interview had tied the palace's hands. They couldn't punish her without seeming vindictive, nor could they ignore the most watched royal interview in modern times. Queen Elizabeth II, known for her strict policy of never complain, never explain, was reportedly deeply hurt by the broadcast, but remained silent in public. Meanwhile, Diana's approval ratings skyrocketed, jumping 18 points in less than a month. Even today, Diana's statement echoes through history. Every time Camilla is discussed in the public sphere, especially since being crowned Queen Consort in 2023, critics reference Diana's quote. It has become a permanent scar on the royal family's reputation, and a reminder that some truths, once spoken, cannot be silenced. Diana's ability to cut through royal protocol with one sentence was unmatched. But it wasn't just Camilla or Charles she took aim at. In that same explosive interview, Diana did something even more damaging. She hinted that the monarchy itself might not deserve to continue. With just a few carefully chosen words, she ignited a firestorm about the very future of the crown. What she said next would go down as a quiet rebellion against centuries of tradition. Diana's vote against the monarchy. During the 1995 Panorama interview, Diana didn't just critique her marriage, she cast doubt on the monarchy itself. "I don't think many people will want King Charles," she said plainly. The statement was more than just personal resentment. It was a direct challenge to succession, tradition, and national identity. She implied that the monarchy was no longer relevant in the modern world. Her words were a veiled vote of no confidence in the very institution she once represented. The monarchy had long depended on mystery, obedience, and symbolism to maintain its power. Diana, with this one line, introduced the idea that those days were numbered. The idea that a future king could be rejected by public opinion was once unthinkable. But Diana, with her innate ability to connect with people, framed the question not as rebellion, but realism. Was the monarchy still serving the people, or just serving itself? Palace insiders were reportedly in shock. Royal historian Hugo Vickers later wrote that the Queen was gravely concerned by Diana's words. Parliament members in 1996 debated whether public trust in the monarchy had been permanently eroded. Public polling in early 1996 showed that 51% of Britons believed Diana's comments were courageous, while only 34% said she had overstepped. Meanwhile, support for Charles as future king dipped below 50% for the first time. Her criticism laid the groundwork for reforms that Prince William would champion decades later: transparency, accessibility, and human connection over ceremonial distance. Diana's outdated remark didn't just criticize Charles, it gave people permission to ask, why should we still believe in the monarchy? If Diana's disillusionment with the monarchy startled the public, her next revelation outright undermined its future. No royal had ever questioned the heir's emotional readiness before. But Diana wasn't just any royal. Her words carried the weight of experience, heartbreak, and deep knowledge of Charles himself. When she said he wasn't fit to be king, it wasn't petty, it was prophetic. And it was this warning that many now look back on as chillingly accurate. Questioning Charles as king long before he ascended the throne, Charles III faced criticism for his emotional reserve, aloof nature, and strained public image. But no critique hit harder than Diana's. In Andrew Morton's 1992 biography, Diana, Her True Story, she was quoted as saying, "He never really wanted to be king. He's not made for it." This wasn't just private venting. Diana was framing Charles as fundamentally unfit for leadership, an heir lacking empathy, decisiveness, and connection to the people. This assertion devastated Charles's image in the early 1990s. Polls from 1992 showed that public support for Charles dropped by 22% after the book's release. Morton later confirmed that Diana had been his main source, leaking tapes and diary entries from 1991. In those entries, she detailed Charles's cold indifference and obsession with maintaining the status quo. To many, it made her not just a whistleblower, but a truth-teller. Queen Elizabeth, according to palace memos, viewed the book as a grievous betrayal. But the damage was done. Charles's portrayal as emotionally distant and inept lingered in the public consciousness for decades. Even as he ascended to the throne in 2022, analysts cited Diana's remarks as part of the reason public enthusiasm remained lukewarm. Diana hadn't just criticized her ex-husband, she had predicted a national dilemma. Decades later, Diana's words remained sharp and unrelenting. In 2023, Prince Harry echoed similar concerns about the institution's emotional dysfunction, reinforcing what Diana had said 30 years earlier. Her ability to see past titles into character made her critiques not only bold, but enduring. Diana's condemnation of Charles shook the foundations of succession. But her deepest emotional pain, and her most controversial target, wasn't the future king. It was his mistress. The one woman she believed destroyed her marriage from the inside out. Diana didn't just resent Camilla, she called her out, directly and publicly. And what she said about her, both in private and on record, changed the way Britain viewed the other woman forever. Her stance on Camilla. In 1989, during a private party at the home of mutual friend Lucia Santa Cruz, Princess Diana did the unthinkable. She cornered Camilla Parker Bowles and said directly, "I know what's going on. Don't treat me like an idiot." This confrontation, later confirmed by Diana herself in tapes released to Andrew Morton in 1991, was more than a personal outburst. It was a defining moment where Diana rejected silence and tradition to speak her truth. She saw Camilla not just as the other woman, but as the shadow presence who had followed her from the day she married Charles in 1981. In the years following, Diana repeatedly described Camilla as always there, haunting every aspect of her marriage. In her 1995 BBC interview, she refused to veil her disdain. A woman's instinct is a very good one. It was clear from day one. Her words made it impossible for the palace to spin the affair as a late-stage collapse. Diana framed Camilla as a longtime interloper, one who was protected by palace silence and Charles's loyalty. For a monarchy obsessed with tradition, this was a PR disaster of historic proportions. Public reaction was intense. By 1996, support for Camilla in public polls hovered at a miserable 13%, while Diana's soared beyond 70%. British tabloids dubbed Camilla the Rottweiler, a nickname Diana reportedly used in private. That characterization stuck, poisoning Camilla's reputation for over a decade. Diana's refusal to show restraint helped establish a clear moral divide. She was the betrayed wife, and Camilla, the usurper. Diana's candidness didn't just break protocol, it redefined the power of a royal woman's voice. Her comments weren't impulsive. They were part of a larger strategy to reclaim her narrative after years of humiliation. And they worked. Even as Camilla became queen consort in 2023, public memory of Diana's words lingered. Every comparison made between the two women still stems from Diana's decision to name, confront, and expose. She didn't just talk about betrayal, she made it unforgettable. Diana's fearless condemnation of Camilla was personal, but it pointed to a bigger pattern: the failure of the royal system to protect or support her. And nowhere was that failure more apparent than in the contrast between what the monarchy demanded of her and what it denied her. Diana wasn't just confronting a rival, she was rebelling against an entire structure. The more she was silenced, the louder her voice became. And soon, she began challenging not just people, but royal roles themselves. Diana's anti-establishment leanings. In 1995, when Diana famously said, "I'd like to be a queen in people's hearts, not on paper," she redefined what it meant to be royal. For centuries, the British monarchy had thrived on symbolism, exclusivity, and stoicism. But Diana, through her actions and her words, chose people over protocol. Whether it was hugging AIDS patients in 1987, walking through Angolan minefields in 1997, or visiting sick children without cameras, Diana insisted on doing what felt right, not what was expected. She openly criticized the cold, emotional atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace, once saying to a friend, "You're not a person there. You're a function." This comment, later published in Tina Brown's 2007 biography, summed up Diana's disillusionment. She believed that the monarchy had become a machine that cared more about image than individuals. Her work with HIV/AIDS, her visits to homeless shelters, and her partnership with the Halo Trust were not just charitable, they were revolutionary. She was doing what no royal had dared to do before. These actions, and the words that accompanied them, frightened the palace. Officials worried that Diana's popularity, paired with her criticism, would turn public opinion against the monarchy. And they were right. By 1996, support for the monarchy had dipped 15% among youth voters. Her phrase, "Queen of People's Hearts," entered everyday language and has remained in the public consciousness ever since. It was a title given not by coronation, but by compassion. What Diana expressed with such clarity was a new kind of monarchy, one that led with feeling rather than formality. She once wrote in a private letter, "Being human is not a weakness." That sentiment challenged the core of royal behavior, where detachment was seen as strength. Diana made empathy royal, and she did it by speaking plainly and acting boldly. As Diana moved further from royal expectations, her voice became more candid and more controversial. But while some of her critiques were systemic, others were deeply personal. She didn't just challenge the institution, she laid bare the ways it failed her as a woman, a wife, and a mother. Her next revelation didn't just shock the public. It exposed the monarchy's refusal to address something millions face: the pain of untreated mental illness behind gilded palace doors. Her public struggles with mental health. When Princess Diana admitted on national television in 1995 that she had suffered from bulimia, postpartum depression, and self-harm, the revelation was unlike anything the British public had heard from a royal. She told Martin Bashir in her Panorama interview, "I was crying out for help, but it was just not coming." Those words carried the weight of every suppressed emotion behind her porcelain smile and royal wave. It was not just personal, it was political. The monarchy's failure to address her suffering revealed its emotional emptiness. Diana said she felt deeply unsupported by Charles and described the palace's attitude as one of disinterest and discomfort. Behind the polished windows of Kensington Palace, she was spiraling. In the early 1990s, she reportedly sought help from private counselors, but was discouraged from speaking publicly. The monarchy, she claimed, didn't know how to handle feelings. This chilling confession, backed by testimonies from friends like Simone Simmons and Dr. James Colthurst, forced the British public to confront the myth of perfect royal life. Her openness changed everything. Mental health, once a taboo topic, entered mainstream discussion thanks to Diana's bravery. In 1997, the year she died, calls to the UK's mental health helpline increased by 28% in the months after her interview aired. She became a silent pioneer, paving the way for Prince William and Prince Harry's 2016 Heads Together initiative, which openly discussed their grief and emotional trauma. Her influence extended far beyond her life. It transformed the conversation for an entire generation. By choosing honesty over shame, Diana broke yet another royal barrier. Her mental health journey became not a weakness, but a symbol of courage. And in doing so, she gave permission to millions to seek help, speak up, and understand that royalty does not make one immune to suffering. Diana didn't just share her pain, she made it purposeful. Diana's courage in confronting her inner demons earned her admiration far beyond palace gates. But not everyone inside the monarchy appreciated her vulnerability. In fact, the person whose approval she needed most, the Queen herself, remained cold and distant. Diana's next set of controversial remarks would take aim not at Charles, not at Camilla, but at the woman at the very top. And what she said revealed just how alone she felt within the family she had married into. Her hidden feelings about the Queen. Behind closed doors at Kensington Palace, Princess Diana confided in friends that she felt emotionally abandoned by Queen Elizabeth II. In letters later published in 2021 by biographer Angela Levin, Diana expressed despair at how the Queen would advise silence and duty whenever Diana sought help. One letter dated March 1993 read, "Silence is what I'm told, but silence is slowly killing me." Her comments painted the Queen not as a maternal figure, but as an aloof monarch unable to offer empathy. The distance between them wasn't just emotional, it was institutional. According to Paul Burrell, Diana's former butler, she once said, "The Queen is a symbol, not a sanctuary." That feeling of loneliness was compounded after the 1992 separation from Charles. While Diana was suffering emotionally, the palace remained focused on image control. Friends say she felt deliberately left to weather public scrutiny alone. "No one hugged me. No one said, 'Are you okay?'" she later told Martin Bashir in her 1995 Panorama interview. By speaking out, Diana was making an indirect but explosive critique of royal leadership. Her implication was clear. Even the highest woman in the realm had failed to protect the next generation. This revelation shocked many royalists. To them, the Queen was above reproach. But to Diana, the monarchy was a place of cold indifference. These private remarks, later confirmed by her confidants, highlighted how disconnected she felt from royal power, even as its most famous figure. The image of a young woman, adored by the public but emotionally isolated inside palatial walls, struck a chord. Diana's truth rang louder because of how rare it was. To criticize the Queen, even subtly, was unheard of in 20th century royal history. But Diana's lived experience shattered the myth of Windsor warmth, and it revealed that royal blood did not equal emotional safety. Diana's disappointment in the Queen wasn't rebellion. It was a cry for support. When that support never came, she turned to the only thing she had: her instincts as a mother. If the monarchy wouldn't protect her, she would protect her sons herself. And in doing so, she rewrote the royal parenting rulebook. Her next set of controversial actions would break long-standing traditions and forever change how future royals, especially William and Harry, were raised. Defying palace parenting, Princess Diana's approach to motherhood sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace. From the moment Prince William was born on June 21, 1982, she insisted on doing things her own way. She chose St. Mary's Hospital for the delivery, a break from royal tradition, which previously favored palace births. Diana told aides, "They're not royal ornaments, they're children who need love." That statement alone was enough to ruffle feathers among royal elders. Instead of shielding her sons behind palace walls, Diana took William and Prince Harry to amusement parks, McDonald's, and even homeless shelters. She often hugged them in public, something rare in a monarchy that preferred stoicism. According to former royal chef Darren McGrady, Diana would personally drop them off at school and refuse to let staff interfere during story time. She wanted to be their safe space, McGrady said in a 2017 interview. Her actions weren't just maternal, they were subversive. By treating her children as normal boys, Diana was challenging centuries of royal upbringing. Traditionally, heirs were raised more by nannies and courtiers than parents. Diana flipped the script. Her critics called her too emotional, but her supporters saw something else: a woman refusing to let the monarchy strip her sons of their humanity. "I want them to know what real life looks like," she once told journalist Jenny Bond. These choices weren't just symbolic. They had lasting effects. William and Harry both cited their mother's example as formative. William's hands-on parenting of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis mirrors Diana's approach. Her insistence on emotional presence set a new standard. She wasn't just redefining royal parenting, she was building the next generation of modern monarchs. Diana's bond with her children was her greatest rebellion and her greatest strength. But as she nurtured her sons, she continued battling a palace that tried to silence her. And so, she began turning to the media, not to destroy the monarchy, but to finally be heard. Her next controversial moves involved secret meetings, unauthorized interviews, and leaked tapes. What some called treason, she called survival. It was the beginning of a media strategy that would shake the monarchy to its foundation. Going rogue in the press. In 1992, Princess Diana secretly collaborated with Andrew Morton to publish Diana, her true story. At the time, the palace believed it was an unauthorized biography. In truth, Diana had recorded hours of tape, pouring out her pain, revealing self-harm, suicide attempts, and emotional abuse. "They never let me be me," she said on one tape. This act, disguised and deliberate, was a political bombshell. The book painted a scathing picture of royal life, Charles's coldness, Camilla's ever-present shadow, and a family that demanded silence over well-being. Diana's words reached millions. When Panorama confirmed in 1995 that she had indeed been the source, the monarchy was humiliated. Royal aides reportedly called it a betrayal of the crown. But to Diana, it was justice. She felt cornered, and the press became her only escape. In 1995, her Panorama interview with Martin Bashir cemented her rogue status. "There were 3 of us in this marriage," she said. An unfiltered, unapproved, and unforgettable line. She called out Charles directly, questioned the monarchy's purpose, and expressed doubt in her own royal future. The palace was blindsided. Queen Elizabeth reportedly watched the interview in silence and called it a disaster for the institution. But for the people, it was liberation. Diana gave voice to emotions long hidden behind protocol. She pulled back the curtain on royal perfection and showed the pain beneath. Her rebellion was not one of power, it was one of truth. And in telling it, she forever changed the monarchy's relationship with the media. By now, Diana had turned herself into something the royal family feared, a free woman with a global platform. But her eyes were never just on the present. She had a vision for the future, a monarchy built on empathy, not elitism. And at the center of that dream was her son, William. Her final and most controversial prediction wasn't about herself or Charles, but about who should really wear the crown, and it wasn't the man next in line. Her vision of the future, friends of Diana, including Simone Simmons and Dr. James Colthurst, have long confirmed she believed Prince William, not Charles, should be the future king. She once told royal photographer Arthur Edwards in 1996, "William has what Charles doesn't, heart and vision." These comments weren't just maternal bias, they were political statements about the future of the crown. In private letters, later published in 2003, Diana expressed concern about Charles's temperament and his emotional detachment. She feared he lacked the empathy required of a modern monarch. "I worry he will rule with distance, not devotion," she allegedly wrote. Meanwhile, she believed William had inherited her emotional intelligence and would connect with the people in a way the monarchy never had before. Her words aligned with a growing public sentiment. After the Panorama interview aired, polls showed 53% of Britons preferred William as future king, even though he was just 13 years old at the time. Diana never called for a direct skip in succession, but her suggestion was clear. The crown needed healing, and William was the one to deliver it. For a royal to publicly undermine the line of succession was unprecedented. In the years since her death in 1997, William has indeed stepped into a role that mirrors her vision. His mental health advocacy, environmental work, and relatable parenting style reflect the future Diana hoped for. Her belief in him wasn't just maternal, it was prophetic. And with every step he takes toward the throne, her final controversial comment feels less like rebellion and more like truth. Princess Diana didn't just challenge the royal family, she reshaped it. Through honesty, defiance, and unmatched compassion, she redefined what it meant to wear a crown. Her controversial words weren't cries for attention. They were blueprints for change. And today, as her son carries forward her vision, the world finally sees. Diana wasn't breaking the monarchy. She was rebuilding it in the only way she knew how, with love, courage, and the truth.